Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So as you know, we were doing political theory series. So today I'm going to teach you the new concept which is civil disobedience and satyagraha. So let's get started. Firstly, we will see the contents. First, intro, then concept of civil disobedience, then history of the concept of civil disobedience, theory of civil disobedience and existentialist philosophy, Gandhian concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha, civil disobedience in practice. See, the concept of civil disobedience movement has become an important element in the political power structure in contemporary world. This movement has spread around the world. It has been exemplified by Dr. Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement in the US, the People's Power movement in the Philippines, the non-violent collapse of communism in Eastern Europe, and so on. The success of Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King had a lot to do with the emergence of Satyagraha as an organizational power. To discuss about the history of the 20th century without exploring the impact of civil disobedience and Satyagraha is to malign the very basis of the people's movement and the study of social science. The Gandhian method of civil disobedience and satyagraha has given a new dimension to the concept of statecraft. While delivering the most prestigious Gandhi Memorial Lecture on Towards a World Without War, Gandhi's and the Modern World on 11th February 1992, Dr. Daisaku Ikeda said, as we approach the end of this century of unprecedented wars and violence, we seek as our common goal the creation of a world without war. At this critical juncture, what must we learn from this great philosopher, a man whose spiritual legacy could rightly be termed as one of the humanity's priceless treasure, a miracle of the 20th century? See, the basic aim of every political system is to assist in the process of self-actualization of individuals, to fulfill the inner requirements for a continuous moral growth. The very concept of Satyagraha has provided a new meaning and orientation to the concept of politics. Dr. Martin Luther King was so much influenced by the concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha that he said, if humanity is to progress, Gandhi is inescapable. He lived, thought, and acted inspired by the vision of humanity, evolving towards a world of peace and harmony. The Swedish economist Gunnar Myrdal said, in a time of deepening crisis in the underdeveloped world of social malaise in the affluent societies, it seems likely that Gandhi's ideas and techniques will become increasingly relevant. See, in a violent international climate with struggle for economic hegemonies and ever-escalating systematic process of violence, not to mention about human rights violations, poverty and hunger, the concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha of Gandhi is gaining more and more momentum. Okay, the concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha has played an important role in the theory and practice of human libertarian movements. It has indeed continued to inspire the social and political movements throughout the world. The Gandhian principles of non-violence and civil disobedience are rooted in his concept of satyagraha. Okay, now come to the next topic, which is concept of civil disobedience. The phrase civil disobedience, which is so widely used as a strategy to ensure social justice throughout the world, does not have any precise and specific connotation. Henry David Thoreau is generally credited with using this phrase as the title of an essay in 1849. Thoreau changed the title of his essay from resistance to civil government to civil disobedience. There is, however, neither any documentary evidence to show that Thoreau himself coined this phrase, nor any reason given by him to indicate as to why he changed the title of his essay. See, the concept of civil disobedience has a long and varied history covering almost the world stream of human thought from the Greek era to the present day. The justification and analysis of the concept has been attempted from a variety of philosophical, political, and linguistic angles. The concept of civil disobedience implies an act or process of public defense of a law or policy duly formulated and created by a governmental authority which an individual or a group considers to be unjust and or unconstitutional. The defense of the government law or policies must be a premeditated act and the movement has to be announced in advance. The defense of law might take either violent or non-violent form. It may be either active or passive. As the basic spirit of the civil disobedience movement is to arouse public conscience, the individual or the group must be prepared to accept punishment for the violation of law or policies. The action or non-action of civil disobedience has to be openly insisted on in order to be qualified as civil disobedience. Okay, the concept of civil disobedience is grounded in justice and common good, and its end must be a limited one. The basic aim of civil disobedience movement is to arouse consciousness in the adversaries and appeal to their conscience. Martin Luther King during the civil rights movements in the US also successfully used this strategy. Referring to the concept of civil disobedience, Mahatma Gandhi said, I shall consider it civil disobedience to be a public, non-violent and conscious act contrary to law, usually done with the intent to bring about a change in the policies or laws of the government. Civil disobedience is a political act in the sense that it is an act justified by moral principles which define a conception of civil society and the public good. It rests then on political convictions as opposed to a search for self or group interest. In the case of a constitutional democracy, we may assume that this conviction involves the conception of justice that involves around the constitution itself. Okay, now come to the next topic, history of the concept of civil disobedience. The concept of civil disobedience has a long and varied history. The concept was very popular as the antique theme in the Greek dramas. It was the basic theme of the anti-war motif of Lysistrata, where the women, apart from leaving their men, captured the Acropolis and the treasury of Athens. This conflict between civil law and conscience could be seen in the passive resistance of Jews to the introduction of Icus into Jerusalem. Throughout the long history of human civilization, there has always been a conflict between individual freedom and political authorities of the state. The freedom to choose whether to obey the dictates of state law or not has always been the basic theme of civil disobedience movement. Socrates considered obedience to and search for truth as the fundamental aim of human life. To him, justice is an element of truth. Although he strongly believed that an individual could not develop in a well-ordered society and it was his moral duty to obey the state, he was not prepared to sacrifice the realm or conscience. He strongly advocated that the state has no right to force an individual to act unjustly. This is the area in which he justified the role of civil disobedience. The early Christians used civil disobedience movement as justification for religious and moral obedience to God. This was the first non-violent civil disobedience movement in the West. The doctrine of civil disobedience movement has been used as an instrument of socio-political transformation on a number of occasions. The modern concept of civil disobedience had its origin in the writings of empiricists like Thomas Hobbes. The political situation of England in the 17th century made Hobbes espouse the doctrine of fundamental natural rights as a basis for obedience to government. He was convinced that in order to guarantee rights to the individuals, the state must ensure a climate of civil peace. He was not prepared to grant the right to dissent to the individuals in the state. The only condition under which the individuals were entitled to have the right to dissent was when the state was not strong enough to protect the rights of the individual and to ensure civil peace in the society. The right to civil disobedience was indeed inherent in the specific conditionality of Hobbes. John Locke was of the opinion that the people have a right to resume their original liberty and to establish a new government, even if he was not so precise and clear about the propriety of the resistance to the authorities of the state. He was convinced and that the people have the right to have both non-violent and violent civil disobedience movements to ensure liberties, properties, and social justice. While analyzing the empirical utilitarian approach to determine the concept of the right to resist, Henry David Thoreau adopted an idealistic anarchist view. He strongly believed that all civil laws that try to encroach upon the areas of moral law have no moral justification to exist. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, which emphasized humanistic foundations for man's basic rights, supports the contention of Thoreau. In his Treatise of Human Nature, David Hume provided a libertarian concept of civil disobedience. Jeremy Bentham advocated that conscientious citizens have to enter into measures of resistance as a matter of duty as well as interest. James Mill adopted a paradoxical attitude towards the concept of civil disobedience. See, the syndicalists emphasized the obedience to democratic trade union leadership only so as to have access to the areas of positive freedom. One must not forget that the anarchist in the idealist, Tolstoy or socialist Bakunin, Kropotkin tradition have always pleaded for a total rejection of state system based on the positive concept of freedom. In fact, they provided a new approach to the realization of man's social self through civil disobedience. See, political theorists consider the idea of natural law as an important basis of the modern idea of civil disobedience. Although both Aristotle and Cicero failed to develop a theory of civil disobedience, their views on the subject have definitely paved the way for the justification of a civil disobedience movement. Aristotle said that unjust law is not a law. Cicero was of the view that a true law, namely right reason, which is in accordance with nature, applies to all men, is unchangeable and eternal. These views have provided a strong ground for the civil disobedience movement. In recent years, the Church has taken a bold stand regarding civil disobedience. The right to disobedience is no more limited to violation of divine laws. Pope John said, "For to safeguard the inviolable rights of the human person and to facilitate the fulfillment of his duties should be the essential office of every public authority." This means that if any government does not acknowledge the right of man or violates them, it only fails in its duty, but its orders completely lack juridical force. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is theory of civil disobedience and existentialist philosophy. The theme of alienation drawn by existentialist philosophy is an important aspect of contemporary theories of civil disobedience. Albert Camus is considered a leading contributor in this area. Although both Albert Camus and Jean-Paul Sartre and other existentialist thinkers believe that there is no valid basis for any moral or political authority's claim to validity or to obedience, Camus was more forthright regarding his views on resistance to oppression. He was the opinion that respect for the dictates of justice must precede respect for law. In his Nobel Prize address, Camus strongly advocated his refusal to lie about what we know and resistance to oppression. He was not even averse to the use of physical force, although he always regarded it as a supreme civil to counteract the worst violence of the state. He considered every power allied and authority of the state as the enemy of justice. He considered pacifists as bourgeois nihilists. Okay, now come to the next topic, which is Gandhian concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha. Mahatma Gandhi is considered to be the leading theorist in the history of civil disobedience movement. The Gandhian concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha is the greatest contribution to mankind in our times. Albert Einstein said, "It is my belief that the problem of bringing peace to the world on a supranational basis will be solved only by employing Gandhi's method on a large scale." Martin Luther King said, "From my background, I gained my regulating Christian ideals. From Gandhi, I learned my operational technique." Gandhi called his concept of civil disobedience as the doctrine of satyagraha or truth force. For him, the adjective civil in the phrase civil disobedience referred to peaceful, courteous, and civilized resistance. To him, the concept of passive resistance, too inadequate to grasp the full implications of the concept of satyagraha. He said that one must not only resist passively the injustice and arbitrariness of the government, but also must do so without any feeling of animosity. In the earlier phase, Gandhi had spoken of passive resistance as an all-sided sword. He said it blesses him who uses it and him against whom it is used. Without draining a drop of blood, it produces far-reaching results. Given a just cause, capacity for endless suffering and avoidance of violence, victory is a certainty. See, subsequently Gandhi abandoned the term passive resistance and chose the term satyagraha. The concept of satyagraha is devoid of any feelings of hatred and violence. Means it is based on spiritual purity. Like Tolstoy, Gandhi was opposed to all forms of violence in his commitments to political actions. Arne Nice, a leading theoretician on Gandhi, has stressed Gandhi's constructive imagination and uncommon ingenuity in finding and applying morally acceptable forms of political action. Satyagraha, the unique system of non-violent resistance to the government's arbitrary methods and actions, is indeed his greatest gift to mankind. For Gandhi, ahimsa, which means non-violence, and truth were inseparable. He said the ahimsa is the means, truth is the end. Gandhi used satyagraha as a lever for social movements. Okay, in order to understand the Gandhian concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha, it is desirable to know Gandhi's view on the subject in detail. Gandhi said satyagraha largely appears to the public as civil disobedience or civil resistance. It is civil in the sense that this is not criminal. The lawbreaker openly and civilly breaks unjust laws and quietly suffers the penalty for their breach, and in order to register his protest against the action of the lawgivers, it is open to him to withdraw his cooperation from the state by disobeying such other laws whose breach does not constitute moral turpitude. In my opinion, the beauty of efficiency of satyagraha are so great and doctrine so simple that it can be preached even to children. Gandhi strongly advocated that it was the birthright of every individual to offer civil disobedience in the face of unjust laws. He wrote in 1920, "I wish I could persuade everybody that civil disobedience is the inherent right of a citizen. He does not give it up without ceasing to be a man. Civil disobedience therefore becomes a scared duty." Okay, in his evidence before the Hunter Committee that was constituted by the Government of India to inquire into the disturbances in 1919, Gandhi argued that civil disobedience would be called for and is legitimate even in a democracy. He highlighted its constitutional aspects in his reply to the Hunter Committee as to what he would have done towards the breakers of laws if he would have been a governor himself. Gandhi replied, "If I were in charge of government and brought face to face with a body who entirely in search of truth were determined to seek redress from unjust laws without inflicting violence, I would welcome it and would consider that they were the best constitutionalists, and as a governor I would take them by my side as advisors who would keep me on the right path." Some people have questioned the efficacy of satyagraha as a universal philosophy. Gandhi's vision was not confined to the attainment of independence from foreign rule, the control of government by the Indians. He struggled for the Indian soul, not merely for a visible polity. In the concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha, both civil disobedience and satyagraha are deeply interlinked as a theory of conflict resolution. Gandhi said, "Experience has taught me the civility is the most difficult part of satyagraha. Civility does not here mean the more outward gentleness of speech, cultivated for the occasion, but an inborn gentleness and desire to do the opponent good. These should show themselves in every act of satyagraha." The basic aim of every political system is to create a social, political, and economic climate in which the individuals can fulfill inner requirements of their continuous moral growth. The Gandhian method of civil disobedience and satyagraha alone helps in creating conditions in civil society whereby all spiritual values and methods could be appreciated in the state system as a vital necessity for progress and prosperity. Dr. King very successfully implemented this Gandhian method during the civil rights movements. He said, "A just law is a man made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. In the language of Thomas Aquinas, an unjust law is a human law that is not rooted in eternal and natural law. Any law that uplifts human personality is just. Any law that degrades human personality is unjust. All segregation statutes are unjust because segregation distorts the soul and damages the personality." Okay. Now, Gandhi emphasized civil and civil disobedience to imply non-violence. Non-violence, as it is highlighted in the analysis, as a positive as well as a negative connotation. In its negative form, it implies non-injury to any living being. In its positive form, it means the greatest love and the greatest charity. In Buddhism literature, it is highlighted as an attitude of creative coexistence. The Gandhian concept of satyagraha is the product of his faith in religion and spiritual values. He was convinced that the supreme law that governs all living beings and universe is nothing but love and non-violence, and Gita carried this message of non-violence as soul force. The Gandhian concept of satyagraha is not merely an instrument of conflict resolution or non-violent resistance to injustice. It is an integrated concept covering the whole life process of a satyagrahi. It includes truth, non-violence, chastity, non-stealing, swadeshi, fearlessness, bread labor, removal of untouchability, and so on. Civil disobedience is a branch of satyagraha. All satyagrahas can never be civil disobedience, whereas all cases of civil disobedience are cases of satyagraha. Gandhi said its root meaning is holding on the truth, hence truth force. I have called it love force or soul force. Now come to the next topic, civil disobedience in practice. The Gandhian concept of civil disobedience and satyagraha has relevance in contemporary world. Rabindranath Tagore reflected the voice of generation when he said Gandhi was a living truth, a symbol of humanism. Gandhi used the civil disobedience method for the first time during his march to Transvaal in South Africa in 1913 to protest against the discriminatory policies of the South African government. This was the first real mass movement of civil disobedience led by Gandhi. Gandhi was not interested in embracing the Smuts administration. When he found that Mr. Smuts was in trouble, he called off one of his projected marches. Commenting on this action of Gandhi, Louis Fisher, a leading journalist, wrote, "In the end, Gandhi had not won a victory over Smuts. He had won Smuts over." In 1918, Gandhi used the civil disobedience movement in India during his campaign for the textile workers of Ahmedabad. The Salt Satyagraha of 1930, the civil disobedience movement for independence in 1930, and his fast unto death for the development of social conditions of untouchables in 1939 are some of the examples of civil disobedience movements under the leadership of Gandhi in India. The people of South Africa used the Gandhian method of civil disobedience to demand interdependence from the colonial administration. The civil disobedience movement against the apartheid policies of the South African government in 1952. The Johannesburg bus boycott in 1957 and the 1960 march under the leadership of Chief Albert J. Luthuli against the Sharpeville massacre as some of the historic mass civil disobedience movements. Now, the civil disobedience movement by the Buddhists in South Vietnam against the American bombing was inspired by the doctrine of non-violence. The other historic examples of civil disobedience movements were the movement against German occupation in Denmark and Norway, Danilo Dolski strike in Sicily in 1950s, nuclear disarmament campaign in Western Europe, the non-violent demonstrations in Poland, the Vorkuta prison uprising in 1953 in the erstwhile Soviet Union, the Montgomery Civil Rights March in 1955 and the anti-Vietnam War march towards the army base in Oakland in 1965. The civil disobedience movement is gaining momentum day by day throughout the world. Okay. So basically guys, the anti-Vietnam War, civil rights, draft resistant, anti-nuclear weapons movements and a host of other movements in Western Europe, USA and in other parts of the world have given rise to a lively debate about the civil disobedience strategy in a democratic setup. The issue is being debated and discussed from various angles in different parts of the world and also its relevance in contemporary international system, although there has been a significant volume of conservative opinions that would not tolerate any opposition to the laws that have been democratically passed by various state systems. There is also considerable opinion of well-reasoned person in favor of the Gandhian concept of civil disobedience movements. So guys, that's it, we have done this topic. I hope you understand all the points clearly. If you have any doubts, feel free to ask anything to me. And if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel and also press the bell icon for upcoming notifications. See you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.